Welcome back to the Standing in the Gaps News Deep Dive segment, where we like to say we're apolitical,
Yep,
not left, not right, just diving deep.
that's right.
And today we are diving deep into the story of Kash Patel,
Oh, yeah.
a figure who has really been making headlines.
He has. He's definitely made a splash, from law to politics, and now potentially leading the FBI.
Right, potentially leading the FBI. It's quite a journey.
Quite a journey. Yeah.
It is. And so we're going to unpack it all here, starting with just the basics.
Yeah, let's do it.
Kash Patel, an American lawyer and a former federal prosecutor.
Right.
But his career path is anything but typical.
That's right. And that's what makes his story so interesting.
Absolutely.
He started as a public defender in Florida,
Okay.
handling all sorts of criminal cases from, drug trafficking to even murder.
Wow.
I mean, think about the kind of legal acumen you develop handling those kinds of cases day in and day out.
Yeah, that's intense.
Yeah, you're right in the trenches.
You're right in the trenches of the legal system. And then from there,
Right.
he transitions to a trial attorney role in the Department of Justice's National Security Division, focusing on counterterrorism.
Yeah, so you see this move from like street level crime to national security. It seems like a huge leap.
It does.
But both roles require meticulous attention to detail, the ability to, build a strong case and anticipating your opponent's moves.
Right.
It's about strategy
Right.
and understanding the intricacies of the law,
Okay.
whether you're in a courtroom or a situation room.
If you're enjoying this breakdown so far, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.
Please do.
We'd also love to hear your thoughts in the comments.
Yes.
So this move to national security, was this where his political ambitions start to take shape?
It's hard to say for sure, but this is where his path intersects with some major political events.
Okay.
Patel lands a role on the House Intelligence Committee,
Oh, wow.
working under Devin Nunes, who was the chairman at the time. And this was during the highly charged investigations into Trump and Russian interference in the 2016 election.
Yeah, this is where things get really interesting. This is where we start hearing about the Nunes memo. Right?
Exactly. Patel was the primary author of that memo, which alleged that the FBI had committed misconduct when applying for a surveillance warrant on Carter Page, a former Trump campaign aide.
Okay.
To understand the gravity of this, you need to remember that the FBI needed to convince a special court that there was probable cause to believe Page was acting as an agent of a foreign power, in this case, Russia.
Wow.
The Nunes memo claims the FBI omitted key information and relied heavily on the now infamous Steele dossier, which had been funded in part by the Democratic National Committee.
So the Nunes memo was basically alleging that the FBI was biased against Trump and used flimsy evidence to sky on his campaign.
Right.
This was explosive stuff. No wonder it became a political football.
It absolutely did. It fueled a partisan firestorm.
Wow.
Trump and his allies used it to discredit the Russian investigation, calling it a witch hunt. Critics, however, argued that the memo was misleading and cherry-picked information to push a narrative.
Oh, wow. Talk about being in the middle of a political earthquake.
Yeah.
It seems like this experience really catapulted Patel into the inner circle of the Trump administration.
It certainly put him on the map, and from there, his rise in the Trump administration was remarkable.
Okay.
He went on to hold a series of increasingly powerful positions.
Yeah.
He served as the senior director of counterterrorism at the National Security Council, then became the principal deputy to acting director of national intelligence, Richard Grenell.
Wait, hold on. That's a pretty big jump, isn't it?
It is.
From counterterrorism to essentially being the number 2 person in all of U.S. intelligence.
Yes, it was. And not everyone was convinced that he was qualified for such a high-level intelligence position.
Interesting.
Some critics pointed out that his background was primarily in law enforcement, not intelligence gathering or analysis.
Okay, it seems like his career was marked by these rapid ascents and a lot of controversy.
Yeah, for sure.
But before we dive into that, let's take a quick moment to remind our listeners to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives like this.
Please do.
And if you really want to support our work, consider heading over to our GoFundMe page.
Yes.
We're trying to improve our production quality with better webcams, studio microphones, and editing computers so we can reach a wider audience.
Yes. We want to get this information out to as many people as possible.
Every little bit helps.
It does.
So back to Kash Patel. His next move was to become Chief of Staff to Acting Secretary of Defense, Christopher C. Miller.
All right, now we're talking about the Pentagon.
Now we're talking about the Pentagon. This is serious stuff.
It is.
It sounds like he was really at the center of power in the Trump administration.
Yeah.
What were some of the key issues or decisions he was involved in during this time?
Well, Patel's tenure at the Pentagon coincided with a particularly tumultuous period. It was towards the end of the Trump administration, and there were a lot of moving pieces, right? This was after the 2020 election, and Trump was contesting the results.
Right.
Exactly. There were concerns about potential national security threats, both domestically and internationally.
Right.
And Patel was in a key position to influence decision-making.
Yeah.
Remember, as chief of staff, you're not just managing the day-to-day operations of the department, you're also advising the Secretary of Defense on critical policy matters.
So what kind of influence did he have? What were some of the specific areas he was involved in?
Well, one area where Patel's influence was particularly notable was in the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Afghanistan.
Oh, wow.
This was a complex and controversial operation, and Patel was a strong advocate for a swift withdrawal.
Right. That was a chaotic time.
Oh, yeah.
And the withdrawal was widely criticized for its execution.
Oh.
Some argue that it was too hasty and left many Afghan allies vulnerable.
Yeah, and the withdrawal is still debated today. Patel, however, maintained that it was the right decision and that the Trump administration had fulfilled its promise to end the war in Afghanistan.
Right. It seems like he was involved in some really high-stakes decisions during his time in the Trump administration.
He was.
His journey doesn't end there, does it?
Not at all. In fact, things get even more fascinating.
Okay.
Patel has continued to be a vocal presence in the public sphere since leaving government. He's written books, become a regular commentator on conservative media outlets, and even founded his own nonprofit organization, the Kash Foundation.
You're right. He's not one to shy away from the spotlight. His children's book, The Plot Against the King, caught a lot of attention. It's basically an allegory for the Trump-Russia investigation, portraying Trump as a wrongly accused king and his opponents as scheming villains.
Yeah, it's a very interesting way to present a complex political narrative, especially to children.
Right.
The book was praised by Trump supporters, but criticized by others who saw it as propaganda and an attempt to whitewash history.
Speaking of history, Patel has also been quite vocal about his own role in the Trump administration. He's maintained that he was always acting in the best interests of the country, and that he was a key player in uncovering what he believes were deep state efforts to undermine Trump.
Now, to understand this deep state concept, you have to think of it as a belief that there's a hidden network of powerful individuals within the government bureaucracy who are working to manipulate or control events from behind the scenes.
Right.
It's a theory that's often associated with conspiracy thinking, and it's been a recurring theme in Patel's public statements.
So he's basically arguing that there was a concerted effort to sabotage Trump from within the government itself. This is a pretty explosive claim, isn't it?
It is, and it's one that's been met with a lot of skepticism. Critics argue that there's no evidence to support this deep state theory, and that it's simply a way to deflect blame and stoke distrust in government institutions.
This takes us to perhaps the most controversial chapter in Patel's story so far, his potential nomination to lead the FBI.
Right. This was a move that sent shockwaves through the political landscape. The FBI, as you know, is responsible for investigating federal crimes and protecting national security. It's a position that demands impartiality, integrity, and a deep commitment to the rule of law.
And some argue that Patel's past actions in his close alignment with Trump raised serious concerns about his ability to lead the FBI in a nonpartisan way.
Yes, those concerns are certainly out there. His critics worry that he might use his position to pursue political vendettas or to shield Trump and his allies from investigation.
Before we dive into the specifics of this nomination and the potential fallout, we want to remind our listeners that we're here to present a deep dive into the facts. We're not taking sides, but we are encouraging you to engage with this material. Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives like this.
We appreciate all our listeners, and we're dedicated to bringing you insightful analysis on important topics. Now back to Kash Patel's potential nomination for FBI director. This is where things get really interesting.
So we've been exploring this fascinating and controversial figure, Kash Patel. From public defender to the inner circles of Washington, he's had an impact.
He really has. And now this potential nomination for FBI director, it really throws a spotlight on him, on the agency, and on the state of our political climate.
Right, because if you think about the FBI's role, it's supposed to be above the political fray.
Right.
Investigating crimes,
Right.
counterterrorism, protecting our national security that requires public cost.
Absolutely. And that's where Patel's nomination gets tricky.
Yeah.
His supporters see him as a fearless reformer, someone who will shake up the status quo and root out what they believe is corruption within the FBI.
They see him as someone who is willing to challenge the establishment, to expose wrongdoing, even when it was unpopular.
Exactly. But his critics worry about that very same zeal.
Right.
They argue that his close ties to Trump, his willingness to promote certain conspiracy theories, could make him more of a political operative than an impartial leader.
Yeah, it's a tough position for the FBI to be in, and for the country, frankly. If people lose faith in the impartiality of these key institutions, that's a slippery slope.
It is, and it speaks to a larger trend we're seeing not just in the US but globally, a rise in distrust of institutions, a blurring of lines between fact and opinion, and the spread of misinformation. These are complex issues with no easy solutions.
Well said. So where does that leave Kash Patel in this nomination? What are the possible outcomes here?
It's hard to say for sure given the current political climate and the strong opposition from Democrats. His confirmation would be a tough battle. It could go either way, honestly.
And if he isn't confirmed, what's next for someone like Patel? He doesn't seem like the type to fade into the background.
You're right about that. He's built a platform, he's a skilled communicator, and has a clear ideology. He could continue writing, become even more involved in conservative media, or perhaps even run for office himself.
That wouldn't be surprising. So whatever happens, Kash Patel's story is likely to continue unfolding in interesting ways, and it's a story that reflects deeper trends in our society.
Absolutely. It raises questions about the balance of power, the role of intelligence agencies in a democracy, and the importance of critical thinking in the age of information overload.
Well, if this deep dive has sparked your curiosity, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with your friends. We love hearing from you, so leave a comment and tell us what you think.
And if you value this kind of in-depth apolitical analysis, consider supporting our GoFundMe campaign. We're Standing in the Gaps News, and we're committed to bringing you insightful content, better webcams, studio microphones, editing computers. All of that helps us reach a wider audience.
Every little bit counts. You can find the link to our GoFundMe in the episode description. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, stay curious and keep standing in the gaps.